Hello, everyone. You can turn on your cameras if you want, okay? I see some familiar names here. It's great to see all of you here in a full room of people interested in this theme. Okay, hello.
Hi.
Hello. Okay, maybe I can introduce myself and then I let this webinar go along. Okay, I'm Maria. I'm a psychologist at Talent and Career Office at the Rectory of University of Porto, and I'm part of the UP Doctoral Careers team. I've dedicated this last year and a half to the design and implementation of initiatives like this one and others resources that contribute to the development of our PhD candidates' careers and employability. This is the third webinar of our webinar series. You can find the last ones at our page that we'll put in the chat, okay, if you don't know it already, and much more in resources that you'll find there. I'll leave you with, maybe I can, okay. So with this, yeah, thank you, Fernando. With this webinar that's called Designing Your Career as a PhD and Why is that important, we aim to reflect and promote the relevance of this topic and the importance of considering throughout the academic journey. Also, we would like this webinar to serve as a starting point to encourage autonomous exploration of various existing tools and resources that enable the career design as a PhD candidate. So this webinar will be recorded and later published online on our page, UP Doctoral Careers, but only the discussion part, excluding your questions and comments at the end of this session. We'll be managing your questions and comments from the chat, and please feel free to turn on your microphones at the end of the session to give us your insights and questions. So I'll now pass the word to our moderator, Jorge Teixeira. Jorge is currently a PhD candidate in refining petrochemical and chemical engineering at PhEUP in collaboration with Bondalti. His professional experience includes the roles at Unicer, Bebidas, and Barbo as an academic intern and 3 years as an innovation engineer at Sonai Indústria de Revestimentos. Thank you, Jorge, for accepting this challenge. We are very enthusiastic about this webinar. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much for the introduction. I will start in the first place to thank you the invitation to be here to moderate this conversation that is about a topic that interests me. But I would like, in the second place, I would like to thank the presence of our guests that I will introduce. Professor António Coelho is an associate professor currently working at the Department of Informatics Engineering here at PhEUP. It's where I am now. He's teaching computer graphics, programming, digital games. He is also a director of the doctoral program in digital media at the University of Porto and academic leader of the EULAW European University Alliance. And our second guest is Margarida Carvalho. She's a PhD student from the Biotech Health Doctoral Program from ICPAS. Her PhD project is being carried out at E3S in Portugal in collaboration with the University of Twente in the Netherlands. During her scientific path, she has performed 3 international short research internships, which were very important for her professional and personal growth. Besides scientific research, Margarida is also very enthusiastic about science outreach and career development activities. Our third guest is Zacharias Andreadakis. I don't know if I pronounce it well, but I will call it Zach. Zach is an associate professor and senior researcher at HVL, Bergen and Oslo Met universities. He works with in a AI lab that works with competence in the field of transferable skills acquisition, innovation and narrative, scientific methodology and education, and artificial intelligence. So this roundtable will be divided into two parts. The first part, I will put some direct questions to our guests. The second, I will put some general ones to be answered for all our guests. So I will start with Professor António Coelho. My first question is, António, through your career in academia, and you have dedicated much of your work to development of transversal skills in PhD candidates. Could you explore what has been your work like in the doctoral program you coordinate, and as a work package for leader of ILGLO? I would like to also to question if this alliance is only for global health and other PhD students can participate in this kind of initiatives organized by this entity. And do you think that this work could make relevant contributions to pedagogical innovations and bring significant change to doctoral programs of the higher education institutions? If yes, in what way?
Thank you very much. I would topic that is very, very important for me. As you said, thank you very much, George, for your kind introduction. So I've been coordinating this PhD program since 2015, first as a deputy director and afterwards as a director. And well, when I did my PhD a long time before, almost 20 years ago, I always focused on the work of the PhD, the thesis. But as I started coordinating this doctoral program in digital media, which is interesting because it's an interdisciplinary program, so there are different areas and backgrounds of the candidates. And I noticed that after they graduate, they were able to perform a lot of different roles and change their lives and their careers. And that made me think, okay, so a PhD is not about doing a thesis. It's a process that changes your life, your career, to a different level. And what makes that happen? And as I engaged in ILGLO Alliance, I have the lucky to be invited to participate as academic leader in a work package related to transversal skills, professional and personal development, employability, entrepreneurship. And this allowed me to also go through the aspects of what are transversal skills, what are transferable skills, are there frameworks we can use, and this allows me first, and I would like also to share this. So transversal skills or transversal competences, the correct name is transversal competence, means that are competences that are not related to a discipline. It's not just for engineers, just for medical or health professionals, not for artists or musicians or scientists or teachers. It's for all professions. In our project, we have found that companies and evidence tells us that the success of the graduates are correlated to these transversal skills. So the graduates that acquire transversal
I think that you are with bad
leadership,
with internet connection. I don't know. You are failing for me sometimes.
What now? It's okay?
No, it's okay.
Okay. So so these transversal skills it can be associated to leadership, teamwork, or communication, but also digital skills, It's also about critical thinking, problem solving, creativity, and all these competencies allows us to perform better our profession, to explore our technical competencies in the scenarios of work. And this has been increasing as the complexity of the labor market and the challenges that professionals have today. Mainly, for example, in recent years with development of AI, automation, we need these skills to become more efficient in our professions. So, by the way, when we talk about competence, and this is very important, it's not only about knowledge. Competence involves knowledge that we relate to the topics that we learn, but also skills or abilities, the ability to do something, and also attitudes. So that our attitudes can be also shaped in our training. And if we focus on a PhD, okay, we feel that a PhD journey makes the PhD graduates have a set of competencies that makes them unique and able to solve the complex problems of today and tomorrow. So we are preparing not only researchers and professors for faculty, but professionals that are able to cope with uncertainty, complexity, and are resilient and flexible and creative to solve problems. And that can lead us to a lot of careers be in and beyond academia. So that's why I think Yoglo gave me this perspective that we should focus not only on the thesis, which of course can give a value and for innovation and entrepreneurship, but also on the journey. And during this journey, we should always accept the challenges to organize events, to go to conference, to create networks, to communicate with peers, communicate with the public audience, to participate in training about transversal skills. These webinars, for example, we can get skills and competencies for many areas, and we should try to always go out of our comfort zone. So if we feel that we have difficulty in some area, let's put pressure on that area. If we have different difficulty in communicating, let's go for communicating. Let's go beyond that challenge and improve our skills. And then we can have a balanced profile. So I think I answered part of the question. I don't know, can you remind me the other part of the question?
I'm satisfied with your answer. Let me
Okay,
just say that. Let me just say that I agree with you, because today I'm here as a moderator and trying to improve myself in the communication skills. So I agree with you, but I will talk more about this topic with Zach and Margarida. Margarida, I know that your career has been a constant concern throughout your academic path, but let me ask you, why are you doing a PhD, and what you have discovered over these 2 years that you would like to pass to anyone thinking of doing a PhD?
First of all, hello everyone, and thank you for inviting me to be here today representing the PhD students. Why I decided to do a PhD? Well, first of all, because I really like to study and to work in the lab. So I work in biomedical sciences, so we do a lot of lab work, and I really like that during my master. And I knew that for sure I wanted to do a PhD somewhere during my life. And I decided to go directly to the PhD after my master's, because I thought it would be easier, and also on a personal level that it would be easier. And for me, the PhD is both a professional and professional development path. So I think all the skills that Professor Antonio just mentioned that we developed during the PhD made us ready for either to continue in academia or to go to the regular job market after the PhD. So I thought it would be great for me to do a PhD, and those 4 years dedicated to a project was something that I really wanted to do, and that's why I decided to go for it. And regarding the advice that I would give, so I'm still doing a PhD, so maybe I'm a bit biased for now. But for me, I think the main takeout message for these 2 years is that it has been much harder than I thought it would be, but also it has allowed me to improve much more than I was hoping. So and it's really difficult to try to manage our project with other activities. I think there's a tendency for us to be, at least in our field where we work in the lab, to really be focused and overwhelmed by the amount of work that we have to do in the lab. But if we consider a PhD more than just a thesis, like Professor António said, we need to spend some time looking for other opportunities of other courses, either related to our project or to the soft competences that if we want to develop them. And also, and these things take time, and it's important for us to maybe step aside a little bit of the lab to think about what are our weaknesses and also what we want to do besides our project. And that would be especially important for those who want to leave academia after the PhD. But I would say those would be my main 2 messages. So it's going to be harder, but also it will pay off at the end. And also try to balance the PhD work with other activities that could also give you more motivation to work in your project when things don't go as smooth as you want.
I agree with you. I'm on the last year of PhD, and it's hard. It will be harder, but in the end, I hope that we'll all have a good finish. So I will ask Zach, as a PhD holder, that has an atypical career for a professor. I'd like him to share with us his part of life on this career theme after he finish his PhD, and what kind of tools did you use, Zach, as to navigate the certain path of working of the working world as a PhD candidate? And what do you think could have done during your PhD to better prepare yourself for an uncertainty of the labor markets?
Thank you so much, Jorge, for this question, and welcome everybody. Porto, I have to praise you for putting everything together, so we don't take that for granted. Okay, so first question, my career and how it played out. Listen, the thing I would just cut to the chase. The thing I would go back to as an advice to what to do when you do a PhD is a little bit of what Margarida said. Don't think too much just about the thesis. Now, all your energy or your kind of life force is around, oh, I need to deliver this PDF. But I encourage you to resist this thought and instead to think a little bit with your right side of your brain, which is more holistic. So all the PhD training is very left side, is like control, finish specific tasks and this kind of thing, and we tend to overload it. But that part of the brain is just the emissary. The real master should be the holistic thing. So to everybody listening, if I were to plan my PhD career, instead of thinking, oh, what kind of skills I need, I would start by thinking, okay, whom do I know? What is my network? And how can they amplify my skills? And that's a completely different way of learning in PhD track. That's the first thing I would say. The second thing, listen, you're a bit like on a transformation journey, as Antonio said. You are in your cocoon and you're about to explode in your beautiful butterfly. Accept that the cocoon is ugly. It's ugly. No one likes the cocoon. You all want to fly. It will take some time, okay? Very much like being in a cocoon or being pregnant, allow the pregnancy to actually happen. So the tendency is to just try to break off, but if you get out of the cocoon too early, you're going to still be an ugly duckling. So just give it some time. That's the second thing. And the final thing I want to encourage everybody is like, when you take advice, always try to challenge yourself instead of thinking, oh, what a great advice, I'm going to accept it, I would encourage you to be a bit more Socratic, be like, maybe this advice is all wrong. Maybe some evil demon is trying to kind of trick me. What would be the actual assumption I have, and how can I challenge it? So I encourage you to be a little bit with your thesis, to be like more critical. So I hope this answers the question. I told you guys before that I think a lot like George from Seinfeld. I try to do the opposite. All the bad instincts I have, I try to actually push them and do what's the opposite of my first instinct. And that always actually pays off.
Thank you, Zach. Um, um, in the I want to ask you because you mentioned in our previous meeting one important point that I would like to mention here is the fact that it's not easy. The fact when you finish our PhD to the industrial market, you talk about it. Can you explore a little bit that part?
Sure. Let me introduce you to my favorite idea, the CV of failures. So you all bring a CV of success, right? This polished version, this Instagram version of your reality. I hate that. I despise that. I opened up, after advice from my wife too, an Excel spreadsheet with all the applications I ever did and all the failures. And I try to keep this heavy. It's like keep applying, keep failing. I counted over 100 as long as I was trying to find my first real break. And my encouragement to all of you, if you are to keep one thing from today, create and maintain for the rest of your life a CV of failures. And when you go to interviews, don't show the other stuff. Like the other stuff, they know you're in the interview. Let them be impressed by your failures. That's what I want to encourage you all.
Thank you so much for sharing this. I never thought of this kind of point of view, but it's very true, and I agree with you. I will return the question to Professor Antonio. You already talked to us saying that knowledge isn't everything. So how do you think that a PhD candidate like me and Margarida should stand out as a future professional in the labor markets and beyond the academy? If you want to go out of the academy, what should we do for that? And what are the main transversal skills developed during a PhD that allow me to stand out in the labor market? For you, what is the main skill that you say for us to go for it, to train more and to be a professional at?
So I agree with Zach that one of the main aspects or competencies a PhD must develop is critical thinking. Always look at things not as absolute truths, but question everything. And by questioning, you are also creating a competency called problem framing, which is looking at problems and at different angles. And so this capacity to look at challenges and look in different directions, being able, of course, to use the mastery of literature reviews, understanding what science has to say about it, critical thinking, reflective thinking, and create solutions. That is what companies need for leaders in this market, global market that is that has a lot of complex challenges. And another thing is the importance of working in multidisciplinary environments. So it's typical that a PhD candidate in informatics works with all the other PhD candidates in informatics. But he or her should try to work in different areas of informatics and with different scientific areas, looking at different methodologies, looking at different ways to see things, because in today's world, all the challenges must be addressed interdisciplinary, working with other professionals in multidisciplinary areas. So a graduate in a doctoral program is a person that is going to could lead in academic, in research, in the industry, in innovation, entrepreneurship, could be a consultant or a specialized journalist that can transmit the deep and complex knowledge of science to the all audiences. And mostly, I think that to be an influencer. So the knowledge and the competencies we acquire allows us to understand the problems with a different level, and we should transmit this to everyone, so that all the citizens of our society can have all the knowledge to make decisions. Because today's information is not easy to understand, and many of the media are transforming this information and changing to different goals that are not always the ones related to the truth, or the truth, different truths, of course.
Today we are trying to influence the people who are hearing us. So yeah, I agree with you. Every day we share our words, our intentions, our actions. In some kinds, we always pass a message by that's actions of forms. Margarida, what you have been doing in these years to improve your transversal skills? And when you start your PhD, did you have a different idea of what a PhD can do, or than you currently have? And if yes, in what sense? What strategies and resources have you been using, and how you have been devoting your time to professional development?
Yeah, that's a great question. And so when I started my PhD, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do after it. So as I told you, I just wanted the personal and professional growth. But during these 2 years, I am more or less aware of what I want to do, at least in the first years after the PhD. So during these 2 years, I have been trying to join some initiatives to develop other skills. For example, I have been working with the UP Doctoral Careers program in the podcast in the new season that will come out soon. But I think that it's very important during these 4 years to assess our development over time. And in our research group, our supervisor greatly supports our development besides the scientist part. So, and we have actually a very good initiative, at least in my perspective, which is the fact that each PhD student has 1 or 2 mentors, so people who are external to the project, but and we meet annually with our supervisors and those mentors to check on the project, but also to assess our skills. For example, the communication skills, the writing skills, the mentoring, if we have been mentoring a student, how it was. And based on that skill assessment, we define goals and strategies, and the mentors and the supervisors give ideas on how we can develop those skills in the next year. And also, if the student starts to have an idea of what he wants to do after the PhD, the supervisors and the mentors also gave suggestions on what better the student can do to better start preparing that path. So I think for me that's really important, because at least once in a year I have to think about my skills and what I want to do for the next year, and also start planning what courses to attend. For example, in the first year of my PhD, I did a course on science communication at ICBAS because it was something that I wanted to improve. So I think regarding the career development, that's a big part of what I've been doing. So those meetings have been important for me. And also in I3S, the institute where I work, we have a career development unit. so we can contact them in case we need help with those issues. But I think it always has to come from the student to worry about that. But there are resources available if we need help. And also, I know ICBAS has also an employability department, and also at UP Talento e Carreira unit. So yeah, I think there are a lot of resources out there. Sometimes we don't know about them. So webinars like these, I think, are really important. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. I don't know if I answer all of your questions.
The important message here, I think, this is the one that besides your doctoral program, you should do some tasks to improve yourself. No, never stop. No, you shouldn't only focus on your doctoral program, but also try to do something new to develop a new skill. Do you agree?
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
I think that you always did that, because for what I know, you are working something always in something else besides the
Yeah,
doctoral
but
program.
it's very personal. I like to do those type of activities. So other people might not like it, and that's okay, no worries. But I think the important thing is that you think on what you want to do during your PhD, and don't waste those 4 years just by lack of planning, or and use those 4 years, because we are still students, even though we work a lot. We are still students, so there's a lot of skills that we can develop during these 4 years. But sometimes it takes, like, if we assess every 6 months or at least every year, what am I missing now? What I am, and whenever I have to do a presentation, I'm very nervous, so I have to work on that. So I think, at least for me, also because I see the PhD as a personal growth time, for me, it has been a concern.
Thank you. Zach, you've always been working with and for PhDs that you have allowed to make an important reflection about the PhD as a tool for our careers. To everyone listening, current and future PhD candidates, how can we create a positive social impact with this tool? Do you want to leave some tools for that? Do you need PhD?
Yes. So recently at the Doc Talent for EU, the consortium that Porto is also part of, I created with the colleagues from all the consortium, really, a course on teamwork and networking. So the tool, the first thing is the first principle thing I want to tell everybody. When I was in your position 100 years ago, and I was doing my PhD, everybody was telling me that you need to know what, right? So you need to be the absolute master of this field, right? This obscure whatever thing. And as I grow older now, I realize that I need to know who is doing what I'm trying to do. And the what is becoming better with the who. So this seems paradoxical that, oh, you need to read all the books and master it. But the tool is to understand that you need to really navigate the landscape of people and the who. The who is what is going to lead you to the what much better. It's a more of a grounded approach to the truth. So that's the first thing I would tell you. Just use all kinds of tools that exist now. You know, I personally use Perplexity a lot, this amazing AI tool. And Perplexity has all the other language models in it. So you don't have to use like 100 different models. But the real question to use all the tools is who? Who is doing what you're trying to do? And if nobody's doing it, I wouldn't be just optimistic about it. I would be like, if it's not done at all, I'm either into something really, really big or I'm doing something wrong. So use others and their expertise to actually understand the problem better. And I want to come to what Antonio said, because I think it's very important. The biggest tool of a PhD career is, besides the who, which is very important, and you get that through your training, is this problem framing. The AI still can't do that. It's impossible. If you ask it to actually frame a problem, it cannot understand relevance. So it's for you to decide the relevance. And the social impact will come by your brain's capacity to understand relevance. But to do that, you need to know if you have relevance through people. So create kind of a council for yourself where you're actually probing the idea. And once you kind of narrow down the network of people that plays with this idea, then you can actually kind of create. The tools are going to keep changing, but the first principle thing I think is more important. If you want another visualization tool that I use personally a lot, but it's a bit more advanced, it's called Infranodus. So Infranodus visualizes all the ideas and creates a network analysis of it. That's the second tool I highly recommend to all of you trying to teamwork and network. And the final thing, because you asked about tools, Jorge, and I want to be very practical and specific about it, your biggest tool is your reputation. If people see you and whenever they talk to you, they know you're going to get someone trustworthy that delivers on time, then you have a solid opportunity to create the who. So protect your reputation with your life.
Thank you, Zach. I already use Perplexity tool. It's very important and very helpful for us. But I didn't know the Infranodus, right? Infranodus.
Yes,
what
that's next level.
Okay, what this tool does? I don't know this tool.
Sure. So what it does is that you can upload a text coming now, it depends on the version you have, of a very large language model that you have or a big body of text, and it visualizes connections, and it can also lead to visualizing people that are in a specific kind of field or whatever. So it creates like a network analysis of this. There is a simplified version that you're all researchers here, more or less, from what I understand. Research Rabbit uses some ideas of Infranodus. Research Rabbit is the best tool out there that's for free to do a literature analysis. So I would advise to first go to that. Maybe you already know it. From Research Rabbit, you can use then Infranodus to visualize, because all of us, we work a lot with texts, with models, but we don't ever see to visualize the field. And I do this to do this strategic thinking and the network thing.
Okay, with that tool, we can go after the who is doing this, who.
Yes, I want to challenge forever the idea of the know what. The what is coming only through the who. It's every science is social. That's the Thomas Kuhn way of philosophy of science. Don't go for just the what. Ask the real question, which is the who. Once you master that, then you can do the what better.
Okay, thank you very much. I will start now the round two. That I will put some general questions for everyone to answer. I would like to have a vision of each one of you. So my first question is the vision of what a PhD have changed over the years. Considering the volatility of our labor markets and the power of education in society, what does a PhD mean to you, and what is the value of having a PhD? You can answer by yourself, but you can maintain the order. With Professor, maybe you will be the first to talk. Please.
Okay, thank you. So I think that the PhD has not really changed a lot itself, but we understand the value better now. And I fully agree with Zach that the most important thing that it's your reputation and the networks you build. You cannot do science alone. So it's about networks. It's about, and when I did my PhD, my supervisors always tell you, okay, you must go to this conference, you should publish this work. And publishing was always a way to communicate. So we have this work, I want to communicate this to my community and find the who is working with and who can reflectively give me more opinions about my work. So it's very important that you find the who to help you on the what. That's perfect, Zach. I really agree completely. So I think that the PhD always had this ability to upskill to a new level of competencies in leading research. But in the, well, from when I graduate, the world was different. And so jobs were regulated, were very systemic and disciplinary. Nowadays, the job market has changed. The challenges we have are different, and we need more people that can have these skills to solve these complex problems, these challenges, and in a multidisciplinary and reflective way, because common solutions do not work nowadays. So we need to innovate, invent new solutions. And that's what a PhD graduate does. It looks at first. They found who is doing what related to that. Then what has been done, what has been solved, what is lacking, how to solve that. So that's a reflective action and the problem framing. It's very important. So that's why industry and all the areas are now can benefit from these competencies of PhD graduates.
Thank you. Margarida, your vision, please.
Yeah, I agree with Professor Antonio. I think that maybe some years ago, a PhD was just seen as an expert in that field. But now we start to realize that during the PhD, with a PhD, we are much more than that. So we are also good at managing projects, at managing resources. And the part of the critical thinking, I think it's one of the main aspects of the PhD. So I think the value is more or less the same, but it starts to become, the PhD starts to become more valued outside of academia. I would say that's my opinion on this topic.
Okay, thank you, Zach.
Yeah. I have an honest answer that's a bit perhaps provocative to some, but I think the real reason why we do PhDs is to have an identity crisis. So up until the masters, you're not supposed to be original. You're not supposed to have anything really new contribution to science. But to create something that's really new, then you're going to go through an actual identity crisis. And like the cocoon that gives you this real bubbling crisis that you're going to burst out, that's essentially what's the purpose of the PhD, is to give you a real sense of crisis. Now, it comes with it's a double-edged sword. So on the one hand, I have to say with all honesty, it's not for everybody. This identity crisis that it takes to finish a PhD, it takes some real pain. So we're not going to sugarcoat that. It's difficult, okay? It's no wonder that half of PhDs don't finish. It's not for everybody. But if you are able to put yourself through that kind of pain threshold, what waits on the other side after the identity crisis is a new sense of self. I would say that you go as far as to be kind of a Buddhist kind of no identity person. You're able to transform problems so much that even the field itself doesn't really matter. As you go around, I mean, if you're an engineer right now, the engineering you did 20 years ago, okay, besides the fundamental principles of physics and mathematics, it's completely different. Like think of being a computer scientist 20 years ago and what you do now, completely different. But the identity crisis and you being on the other side of it, that's going to always push you forward. That's going to always pay off. So that's my thesis to you. The purpose of the PhD is to have an identity crisis.
That's good to hear in the middle of it.
I pass for it too.
Of course, I want to say also that you are to get knowledge, you are to get specific skills that are very measurable, that are very valuable. But even if with the skills and even with the knowledge, you still might not go through the PhD. So the real purpose, the control variable, is this marshmallow test. Okay, how much pain can you tolerate? And once you go through it, how do you go on the other side? And you go very different. You know, when you graduate from an American university, you wear these garments, these robes and stuff. Okay, it looks silly, but it's actually a little bit like that. You're wearing now a different robe. That's how I visualize the PhD.
So in resume, it's important to have identity crisis, right? To perform better in the future.
Can I just add something very quick?
Of course.
I agree completely. And I also would like to say that, well, the PhD, the name implies, is Doctor of Philosophy. So basically, what you become after this process or this transformative process is someone that is able to reflect on the subjects that you study, and you are mastering the reflection of problems and solutions. So I think philosophy embraces all many of the competences we achieve as after a PhD.
So the last question is more or less to summarize before we go into the public questions. I would like to ask you all, since the importance of building and rethinking our careers through our PhDs, what can we do as a PhD candidate through the course to better prepare myself and ourselves in this case for my professional futures? We have been discussing some resources through this conversation, so we can summarize the main strategies, tools, resources, services could be available for us for professional and personal development. And I would like to share now some with a picture that you have, Professor Antonio, that could help to discuss this topic. And I would like a vision of that image by everyone here in the session. Can you share, Professor?
Sure. I think you can now see it.
Yes.
So this is the European Competence Framework for Researchers. So the European Union is valuing a lot of the PhD graduate process of training new graduates for the future. And so we normally, when you think about a PhD, we think about this yellow box here that says doing research. And of course, PhD is someone that is able to do research. But during the process, the PhD candidate developed a lot of competencies that you can see here. For example, managing research. To do research, we have to have resources, to mobilize resources, to manage projects, to negotiate, to evaluate the research, promote open access publications, for example. But also we need to make an impact. Reputation is fundamental, as Zach has told. So we should participate in the publication process, disseminate results, etc. But don't forget that we have to have self-management. And one thing that I did and that I did wrong when I did my PhD, that I learned not to do it, is that a PhD is not something that you should be thinking 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. No, it's a job. So you should start at 9 and finish at 5 regularly. You can only do it with work, of course, a lot of work. It's like running a marathon. You cannot read a book to run a marathon. You have to practice every day. But it's after this time, you should forget, do your personal activities, exercise, music, arts, reading, travel. So it is a job, and it will not go faster if you work 24 hours a day. You just lose your temper and energy on that. And of course, it means cognitive abilities, working with others, and managing research tools. So this is the vision of what is a researcher, what is a PhD graduate able of after. Of course, during the process, you will develop more or less of these competencies. So try to look at it as your map for development, personal and professional development. This is a guide for this process of developing through the PhD journey.
As a director of a PhD program, how can you put these skills in your how can you evaluate the students these skills? Do you have any kind of measurements for, okay, let me see if the student is managing research tools very well or making an impact? How can you measure these skills?
So the framework has some levels of performance. So normally we don't measure directly, but this is a guide for self-development. So much of the PhD work is self-development. So you are developing yourself, and of course you should have benchmarks. So for example, if you go here on mobilized resources, we see, okay, we have foundational competencies. You are aware of funding sources. Then you have intermediate, you are familiar to key funding sources, or advanced, it informs others about relevant funding. And if you are expert, you can influence funding policy. So there are different benchmarks that you can understand where you are. So it gives you some milestones to know which level you should be for a specific career and where you are. So it's not quantitative, it's more qualitative. But as a guide, it allows you to assess your performance levels in each of these competencies.
As a supervisor, do you think that a supervisor should say like this, more or less like this? I would like you to go to conference a year to train your communication skills. Do you think is a good thing? Do you think that is a good goal for a supervisor putting on the students? Do you think that all the supervisors should do this kind of pressure, but is a good pressure or not?
I think they should motivate and engage their supervisors to communicate their results, because these results are innovative, they can help others, they get feedback, reflective feedback from others that help them. Some ideas, for example, when I did my thesis, some of the ideas came from others that I was in conference, attending conference, and I spoke with, and these ideas gave me new ways to proceed, because the research project has this divergent phase where you should open yourself to new ideas, and then the conversion phase where you find the solution to your problem. And if you don't open your divergent phase enough, you don't get the best lack of solutions that we can find. So I think that as a supervisor, I always try to engage, but it's always in autonomy, okay? So I teach games, and what I say is the player is always in control, and you are not, well, in many countries you are not students, PhD students, you are PhD researchers. So you are not studying, you are researchers that are developing new competencies to lead research. You already are researchers, and so autonomy and self-development are competencies that must be developed through this process. And so I try to engage and show the benefits, but the decision is always from them. So you are the ones that should decide, like, for example, Margarida and yourself, that, okay, I want to be able to have better communication skills. So I challenge myself. Okay, so if you want to run the marathon, you should start running 5 kilometers, 10 kilometers, 20, and then 40, so that you can achieve your own, because it's about autonomy and leading and being leaders.
Maria, do you want to comment these words?
Yeah, honestly, I didn't know this framework before, but I think it's great that the European Union is interested on PhD researchers or students, and that we are starting, as we have talked before, we are starting to see this change in of seeing a researcher of someone much more than doing just the research. And I think this scheme represents very well all the skills that we develop during a PhD, but also that we should have in mind after the PhD on what we have developed so far. And as Professor António was saying, we could use this more or less as a self-guide to see, oh, what am I already doing good, or what could I improve during this year. So I think this is a beautiful summary. And if we look into the following pages of the document, they give really good tips on, so we can again assess ourselves, see where we stand, and which areas we would like to focus more. I think this is something for sure, something that I will look into more details to see what else can I improve.
Me too, me too. Thank you. Zach, to finalize this intervention, can you give some final words about this?
Sure. Yeah, so regarding this framework, I want to say that as AI becomes more and more advanced, the main focus would be about how you're able to work with others. So the cognitive abilities are essentially a PhD. There is no way around it. You can't have an original contribution to science without it. So, but this is already quite honed when you're doing your master's and you distinguish yourself. So when you get to the PhD, this is more or less forming or fully formed. The ability to work with others is not really the case. And we see that the main reason why people quit jobs or change jobs or are unhappy with their lives is that they're not able to connect with others, they're not able to work together as a team, they don't have a network of people, they don't have the who in place at all. In fact, if you were today in Silicon Valley and you were in California, they would tell you that they have stopped hiring just for skills because they often hire for skills, but they fire for attributes or character. So the ability to have a good character is, or if you don't have that, is the main predictor of your success in a job. So I would say for you, we all live in this overly burned out world, and the cognitive is kind of always in demand. But I would challenge everybody to think more about how you actually coexist and work with others. And that's going to be the greatest predictor of your thriving in an organizational model of any kind, industry, university, whatnot. This is what will drive you forward. So that's my 2 cents about the competence framework. I see that AI is really helping with a lot of the other stuff. And I want to leave you with a final thought that comes from my own experience with advising PhDs and masters and postdocs and whatnot. So I see this split, and forgive me because I'm an NBA fan, so I like basketball a lot. So there are 2 schools of thought here. The one is more of a Miami Heat thing. The Miami Heat is what the name says, is heat. So you go to heat culture, it's a constant pressure, and some people love that, and they want someone that really whips them hard. It's like, what's the benchmark? How many points do you make? Blah, 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 blah. They keep the stats always on, all right? And that's one school, and some really love it, and some really hate it. The other school is the Golden State Warriors. They're in California. They try to enjoy the game and have this serious play attitude. So they are serious, they practice all the time, but they try to make it fun. Now, there is no one size fits all. In this framework, there is some of the Miami Heat, and there is some of the kind of Golden State Warriors. And you need to decide for yourself, by knowing yourself, where you stand. Are you someone that thrives under the pressure of having to do things constantly and being timed? Or are you someone that wants to have more of a serious play and try to enjoy it more and so forth? I say this because underneath this kind of different research competencies, you have these 2 main schools of thought kind of coming and clashing. So that's what I would say as a final kind of piece of advice for all these years I've been working with this.
Okay, thank you very much. I think that there is a room for everyone, for every type of player. In this case, as Professor Antonio said, we are on time to finalize our intervention and let the people make the questions.
Sorry to interrupt you, but maybe before we pass on to the questions, we can summarize some of the main strategies, tools, and resources that we've been talking about here.
I was going to start to take them because I was taking some notes here in our conversation, and I have 5 ways here that I wrote that I think that could describe the better way a PhD candidates. PhD candidates should have critical thinking. It's very important for any kind of field. Should embrace the failures, creating a CV of failures. I like that a lot. Taking initiative, always making activities besides the doctoral program. Networking in defending the reputation. It's the important things that we should do. And AI is here, but working with others will be much more important. I think that this is the main summarize. And I would like to thank you our guests for all the perspectives. And I think that it's now
Yes.
time to our
No,
public
George,
make
George.
some questions. Tell me.
Yes, thank you for your summary. But I think to finish it, this before we pass on to the questions, we can ask Zach, Margarida, and Professor Antonio the main strategies that they think, strategy, tools, resources that are out there, University of Porto and external ones, that can our PhD candidates that are listening to us and other people interested be available for their personal and professional development. We've talked about some of them here. Yes, Zach is putting in the chat here, but maybe we can just summarize one or two before passing to the questions.
From my side, I just want to say I put the course thing out there for transversal skills. My challenge to you is use Perplexity, use Infranodus, and use Research Rabbit to understand the who. That's what you need to take out from today. Once you understand the who, you're in the game. Without the who, you're out of the game. These are the main tools. And focus on trying to understand the networks of who's and how you're going to enter that. So that's the practical thing. On a general level, also try to understand what works for you for these skills and how do you develop skills that you don't have. I said this before to this group, but I try especially to try to involve myself in stuff I'm not bad at to learn from that. And use your network to actually learn from others. Like there is no better learning than mirror neurons, seeing how others do it.
Okay.
Yes, I agree completely. I think that it's important that you don't work alone. So work in the lab, go to the lab, work with others, go to conferences, share your thoughts. Don't be afraid of someone robbing your ideas or something. No, sharing your thoughts is important. They give feedback to you, create this network of influence. I think the research comp could be a good roadmap for you to develop your competencies. And fortunately, today, most universities, and I'm talking about University of Porto and the Global Alliance, we have a lot of Doc Talent, for example, Doc Enhance and Doc Talent for You. The several projects are now providing a lot of courses in transversal competencies that allow you to master and develop these competencies easier. And don't forget that competencies are knowledge, skills, and attitudes. So it's the set of these three components that creates the competence to perform as a PhD graduate. So, and mainly, and my key message is you are the drivers. You can only do it by yourselves. We can, of course, give these tools, but it's a self-development process.
We are the players.
I fully agree with that idea,
Yes.
and that's actually what I was going to say. So there are a lot of courses and workshops and initiatives, but none of that replaces time for thinking on those issues. So you need to assess yourself, see where you stand, what you want to develop, and if you precisely know what you want to develop, then you can look for those courses or those initiatives. And I think it's really good that we have at the University of Porto the Talent and Career Unit. Now they are really focusing on the PhD students, which I think is great. I talk with people from other universities in Portugal, and they don't have those resources. So let's take advantage of those. Also, Universidade do Porto also has the International Relations Office. So if you go abroad, you can also talk with them about that. Also, in each faculty, I know that ICBAS has a very good employability office where you can also work on these issues, and also in your institutes if they are available. But all of these resources will only help us if we know what we want. We can't just go there and say, oh, here I am, I want to develop my career. No, you need to know what you want, what exactly you want. And that comes only if you take the time to assess your skills, your weaknesses. And I think it's also very important, the support from your supervisor, because some of these initiatives may take time away from the lab. I am very lucky. I think my supervisor is really supportive. So, but so also have that in mind, and maybe this is something that you can also discuss with the supervisors. And I think that's my contribution to this question.
Thank you all once again for the invitation, for being here, presence, for the questions, and for the discussion.
Yeah.
I will think that we will finish the session now.
Thank you very much.
Thank you again.
Thanks,
once
everyone.
again.
It was
And goodbye,
excellent.
everyone.
Thank you so much.
Thank you once again. Bye.
Thank
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.